I'm sorry, Mr. Mullen, excuse me.
That's you.
Good evening and welcome to this week's meeting of the Rockland Board of Selectmen, coming to you live on WRPS from the H. Bernard Monahan Memorial Room at Rockland Town Hall. On the agenda this week, we've got a request for a one-day liquor license, a report from the Capital Planning Committee, and the High School Environmental Club. Now, here's the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Ed Kimball.
Good evening. Would you all please rise and join us for a pledge of allegiance?
Mr. Ryan, would you like to lead us? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you all please remain standing for a moment of silence for Ed Reed and Dominic Bonfiglio. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live, recorded by WRPS for playback on Comcast Channel 14 and Verizon Channel 31. It will also be available for online video on demand viewing at WRPSRockland.com within 24 hours of its conclusion, as are other recently recorded meeting and community events. Again, please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. With that, the first thing we have tonight is we have reorganization of this Board of Selectmen. And before that, I'd like to thank everybody for getting out on Saturday and casting a vote in our local election. As you know, we have a new selectman who was elected. Mr. Mullen was re-elected on our board, which then there calls for reorganization of our board. So,
Make a motion that we reappoint the chairman to be the chairman.
second. All those in favor? Thank you, and thank you for the support. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure serving this board, and it'll be, I hope, a pleasure serving in the future. Okay.
Thank you, Ed, for taking it on. And I would make a motion to nominate Deidre Hall as the vice chairman.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor? So it's a unanimous vote. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Pressure's on.
Okay, next up we have community announcements. First up, we have National Grid Award presentation to Rockland from John Bacchus, which I just met tonight, and we happen to be neighbors. He's the manager in community of customer management. Thank you, John. And please.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Board of Select, thank you for having us tonight. My name is John Bacchus. I work for National Grid. I'm the community customer manager. I don't actually represent Rockland. Only time I do represent Rockland is during storms on the storm liaison, during significant storms that we've all gone through this year. So, but I do community customer relations for the outskirts of Boston area and some other communities and towns. And it's my honor tonight to award Rockland with the Shining Community Award. This award is an award that is granted through several programs on top of Mass Save. We worked closely with Marcy and also the town of Rockland. Rockland promoted this award, and some of the things that were done out of the goals that were reached were 3 goals, and they had stuff to do with Mass Save and ABLE. And forgive me, I'm a little stuttery today, new to the community as well. So, but this award, you were granted roughly $17,000 through National Grid, and it was done through the community, and you should really be proud and honored to be able to have an Energy Save program like this in the town. So if I could, just Marcy, could you come up and just speak briefly about this? Thank you.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, John. Sure. Thank you very much. So,
You're very welcome.
most of you are familiar with this. Last year, we promoted it at length as the Community Initiative Program. I think 2 or 3 of our Board of Selectmen actually participated, is that right, and had home audits done? So about 400 homes in Rockland had a home energy audit and went on to do things like replace light bulbs or get weatherization or refrigerator recycling done. And the town was able to raise $17,000, but more importantly, we have 400 homes who hopefully are saving money every month now on their energy bill. So even though the grant program is over, we would encourage you to still call Mass Saves and get an energy audit done, because there are lots of ways to save money on your utility bill. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Marcy, thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thanks.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. John, any chance you want to share your phone number with the public for the storms? Just kidding.
Okay, next up on the minutes, item number 2, open session minutes of April 3rd, 2018.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous vote, thank you. Item number 3, executive session minutes of April 3rd, 2018.
Motion to approve matters not to be discussed until settled. Is that what I want to say?
Released.
No, it's not released. One of those things.
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm going to accuse myself, Mr. Chairman, on that one.
So we have 4, and we have 1 recused. Let the record reflect that. Item number 4, we have some road use requirements. Mr. Chalker.
I don't know if anyone is here, but we've had a request, this is in your book, from Mike Johnson, former member for the Dogs Dash. Is Mike here?
I do not see him in the audience.
All right. But the Dogs Dash is an annual road race that supports the hockey programs here in town, and they would like to hold it on June 16th. They are in contact with Lieutenant E-Coli, who was the coordinator for the police department for all of these things. So, subject to the approval of the police department, I would ask for approval.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Okay, we also have a Little League Parade road request. Anybody here from Little League?
Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Lewis?
Softball, Little League, it's one parade.
Well, this Saturday is our opening day ceremony for Little League and softball. We've already notified the police and the fire department. We do an annual parade from the Jefferson School all the way up to the Memorial Park field. Starts at 11 o'clock.
Did you finish?
I think I did.
Fantastic.
The only other thing is I have to say thank you to the board. This will be my last year on the softball league. I think 11 years was enough.
There you go.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Well, thank you
All right,
for it.
thank
did
you.
a
Thank you very
lot.
much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve.
Second?
All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Thank you. Item number 5, we have a request for a 1-day liquor license for the DoubleTree in Rockland. Mr. Chalker?
I do not know if they're here, but the forms are in your book. They were going to be here at the last meeting, but they are involved in a fundraiser, and they want to be able to do some beverage supply on a 1-day license outside of the building in the parking lot. So the,
He's right here.
he is here.
Okay.
Good evening.
Gian,
Yes, that's the name.
thank you.
Yeah, it's the Ragnar race. It starts in Rockland. They register at our hotel, the DoubleTree in Rockland. And we just want, when they're registering, to be able to take their beverages outside. It's pretty much the gist of it. And it's a charity race that starts up here and goes down to the Cape.
Okay.
Road
Make a
race.
motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Unanimous vote. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good day
Thanks, John.
on that.
Item number 6, we have the Capital Planning Committee report.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening.
Hello, I'm Richard Harris, Vice Chairman of the Capital Planning Committee. Over the last 4 months or so, we've met with various town departments, going over the articles for town meeting that are over $50,000 in cost. Added them to the capital plan that you have in front of you, and then ranked them as well. That plan was approved earlier this evening. We also are going to be amending that plan and have a approved amendment to the plan that will be forwarded to you before town meeting, which includes the selectmen's entry for the purchase of the 258 Union Street property next door for the $400,000. We've also added that to the plan, ranked it using the state ranking sheets, and that will be forwarded to you as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
I don't have any, no, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Committee.
Doing a great job.
Thanks. Thank you. Item
We have
number,
to accept it or anything? No?
This is already amended, isn't it?
they're gonna send us an amended plan.
Okay.
And actually, the ranking that's in your book, because I went to the capital planner meeting earlier, it had only printed to 13B. There was actually 17 items that were ranked, and we'll get an update from them as well once they reshuffle. So it was cut off in there when they had printed it. So, and then they'll make recommendations at town meeting for any of the articles that pertain to them or apply with them. So. Okay, next up, item number 7, the one we've all been waiting for, the Rockland High School Environmental Club. Ms. Hall?
Sure. So about, I don't know, when did you approach me? 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago? 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was approached by members of the environmental club in regards to a project that they were doing for a competition. It's a competition that they have been engaged in for multiple years. They'll talk a little about it. They got my name from the North and South River Watershed group as someone in town that may have an interest in stormwater. So I was happy to meet with them and work with them to see how their intellectual curiosity and desire to want to help the community could match some of the town's needs. And so what we're going to hopefully try to do is work on a project where we can do a little bit of sampling around town to try to meet some of our permit requirements and also teach our future residents a little bit more about stormwater and have them contribute to our community a little bit. So they're going to help present this PowerPoint that we worked together to put together. So, yeah, go ahead. Oh, it's not up yet.
1 second. Can we have each of you just state your name so that the people out there will know who is talking and your family will be proud of you.
I'm Angela Armstrong. I am the science teacher up at the high school.
I'm Sean Chagru. I'm a senior up at the high school.
I'm Tyler Gambon. I'm a sophomore at Rockland High School.
My name is Romy Nye. I'm a senior at Rockland High School.
My name is Michelle Ramoska. I'm a junior at Rockland High School.
Thank you.
And don't we have one other?
He wasn't feeling
Oh, he wasn't. All right. So we're ready. That's our title slide. We can move to the next one.
Alrighty, so the Envirothon project is a statewide competition for high school students. We send a team of 10 to the competition, and we've done this for the past 3 years. During this competition, there are 4 different competitions that they compete in. I said that a lot. They have a tree identification, a wildlife identification, soil testing, and water testing. And then we have a 15-minute presentation to a panel of professional judges that listen to our project of the year. This year is partnering with our watershed. Last year was soil chemistry, and the year prior to that was invasives in our community. So they compete in these 3 things, and then we get scored, and we have a good time doing it. Last year we placed 5th in the water division, which was kind of cool, at our 2nd time doing it. And after the state level, there is a North American competition as well for the first place team in Massachusetts.
Great.
So, next slide.
Next slide.
This isn't in my job.
Sorry.
You're doing great. Thank you. So our environmental club was put together approximately 4 years ago with our current seniors. And Ronan McNally is probably the founder of the environmental club. He is a senior and planning on attending Northeastern University. in the the honors program and is looking at studying biomimicry engineering. Our other senior is Sean Chagru. He has been in the environmental club from the beginning as well. He is also on the tennis team and in our images club and a bunch of other things as well. He plans to go to Boston College to pursue a studies in philosophy and economics. And then unfortunately, one of our other members, who is also a senior, Joe Naughton, has been in this in the beginning. He is the president of the environmental club, the treasurer of the National Honor Society, the captain of the tennis team, and he plans to go to college for environmental science and sustainability. Michelle Ramoska is a junior. She is a member of the cross-country team, the track team, the environmental club, the Rubik's Cube club, and actually performed quite well at our last competition, the book club, the travel club, and math team. And then Tyler Gambon, our sophomore, he is an active member of the environmental club and is also in student government and the treasurer of the sophomore class. So I have kind of an awesome group of kids helping me out with this, or actually, they're doing most of it. I'm just there to. Okay, next slide.
A watershed is basically where like all the water bodies flow into one singular outlet, and that one singular body of water collects all of like the pollution in the area. So a watershed is a geographically defined land measured by elevation and drainage characteristics that drains into one stream, lake or river, and affects the water quality in the water body that it surrounds. In this slide, the watershed boundaries are illustrated by the black dashed lines and are largely delineated by elevation. In this watershed, there are various tributaries, agricultural runoff, urban runoff, and suburban runoff. A healthy watershed can support healthy aquatic ecosystems. Key components of a healthy watershed include intact and functioning headwater streams, floodplains, and riparian corridors, biotic refugia, and stream habitat and biotic communities, natural vegetation in the landscape, and hydrology, sediment transport, fluvial geomorphology, and disturbance regimes. Few watersheds are healthy in urban environments, especially in the eastern U.S., and the health of local watersheds directly impact residents' quality of life.
Want to go to the next slide, Alan?
Okay, this is the map of the North and South River watersheds. Rockland is in the North River watershed, along with Weymouth, Hanover, Norwell, Scituate, Hingham, and Hanson. Although the North River does not flow through Rockland, French's Stream is a tributary to it. Mass DEP has identified that the North River is impaired for fecal, coliform, and mercury in fish. In addition to the following ocean, the North River and its tributaries are a drinking water source for Scituate, Norwell, Hanover, Hingham, Pembroke, and Marshfield. These are some of the various tributaries to the North River, including French's Stream, the Drinkwater River, Factory Pond, Indian Head River, and Forge Pond. French's Stream is located mostly in Rockland, is impaired for fecal coliform, low dissolved oxygen, total phosphorus, whole effluent toxicity, fishes bioassessment. These impurities are linked to the normal pollutants found in urban stormwater runoff and create an ecosystem that is not healthy for aquatic life.
Most of the impairments found within our watershed are caused anthropogenically via human behavior. This is such as the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant. We saw this during the recent nor'easters. The rainwaters flooded our wastewater treatment plant. We couldn't handle it, and we had to release our wastewaters back into the tributaries that contribute to the North and South River watershed, as well as pest waste, pesticides, fertilizers, which include phosphorus and nitrogen. When these enter the North and South River watershed through runoff, it contributes to higher levels of phosphorus and nitrogen within the water, which algae can then use to reproduce at such a rate that it lowers the dissolved oxygen levels in the water, which is unhealthy for that aquatic ecosystem. This is called a toxic algal bloom, as well as decaying organic matter. When the decaying organic matter enters this water ecosystem, again, that bacteria will consume those, lowering the dissolved oxygen within the waters, which suffocates the fish and other life forms within that water.
Next slide, Alan. Great.
What we can do how we can alter our behavior so that we can create a more healthy relationship between us and our natural environment is primarily by, one, supporting the natural filters that support our watershed, as well as reduce whatever negative impacts we might have on that watershed. So for example, don't dump anything down storm drains or into waterways. Check your car for leaks. Recycle your motor oil. Use fertilizers sparingly. Sweep up driveways, sidewalks, and gutters. Essentially, whenever we get a big storm, like we saw with these past few nor'easters, we get a large amount of rainwater that pushes whatever's on the ground, which includes pet waste, sediments on our driveways, decaying organic matter like leaves in our gutters, oils like that rainbowish pattern we see on our cars after it's rained a while and it looks pretty, but it's actually terrible for the environment. All that during those storms will go into the tributaries like Reed's Pond and eventually go into North and South River watershed, which impairs our aquatic ecosystem. That's also why you shouldn't go swimming after it's 3 days after it's rained. Use non-toxic pesticides whenever possible. Don't litter, and again, this is going off of the runoff idea. Direct downspouts into gardens and away from paved surfaces. This includes your driveways, parking lots. These are impermeable surfaces that the runoff can't enter the ground through, which means that most of the rainwater will continue moving and pick up more and more sediment and anything else that's on the ground and carry into those tributaries like Reed's Pond. If we can push them into gardens, they can sit and the ground can soak it up, it can percolate into the soils and be filtered. Bring hazardous materials to the household hazardous waste drop event. And also, most importantly, protect the wetlands. The wetlands are nature's filter for our North and South River watershed. Not only does it handle floodwaters from the nor'easters, preventing the wastewater treatment plant from getting overloaded, but it also filters out whatever pollutants might be in the runoff, which helps out our North and South River watershed. Thank you.
Flip to the next one, Al. There you go. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about the project now and what our plans are for sampling.
So we're going to be sampling stormwater runoff, and we're going to be doing so through outfalls, which are like drains and whatnot. So some of the water quality tests we're going to conduct, ammonia, and that's a nitrogen-containing compound. So nitrogen is a limiting nutrient in aquatic ecosystems, so it determines the growth of populations within that area. We'll also be testing for surfactants, which are chemical compounds that reduce the surface tension of the liquid they're dissolved in. So basically, some examples would be like shampoos or detergents that would get into the wastewater and then into water bodies. And so it can have detrimental effects because it can affect the endocrine system, which is like the hormone system of organisms, and it can also increase the toxicity of the water, which in turn can be lethal to aquatic organisms. We'll also be testing for chlorine, which has been known to cause an increased risk of cancer in humans and animals alike. And it has also been known to cause stress in fish, and disease transmission is also increased. Fecal coliform and E-Coli kind of go hand in hand. They're like these specialized bacteria that are commonly found in the intestinal tract and in human and animal waste. And so when we're testing for the presence of E-Coli in water, what we're really testing is to see if there's any human waste that has contaminated it, and that can ultimately lead to eutrophication, which Ronan mentioned, which is when it's over-fertilizing the water body. And it can also lead to disease amongst the organisms within that system. We'll be testing for dissolved oxygen, which is the amount of oxygen dissolved in the water that organisms can use for cellular respiration or photosynthesis. And so low levels would mean that it's lethal to organisms because there may not be enough for them to survive. And high levels can promote the growth of algae, and it can accelerate photosynthesis, which can then cause low levels of dissolved oxygen to result soon after. And the last thing we'll be testing for is phosphorus, which is also a limiting nutrient like nitrogen, and so that too can affect the growth of populations within the ecosystem. And while we're doing all this, during our investigation, we'll be assessing the physical and structural conditions of the outfalls as well. Thank you.
All right, and so obviously a big question is going to be like, why are we testing this? What are we looking for? I suppose the answer to that is we're really just trying to look to locate and to identify the problem areas in our town where pollution is really a problem for us. And from there, we can really try to best sort of improve our relationship with our local ecosystem and our, in particular, our local watershed to limit our own pollution and limit the impact that we have on the environment and on the organisms there. I think that concludes it.
So, did you want to mention, you have a couple of other projects that you're thinking about coming up? Yeah.
So along with this testing, what I'm hoping to do is kind of make this a long-term relationship. I teach environmental science and I have the environmental club, so I would like to utilize that more to get a more hands-on, why am I learning this sort of idea by continuing this testing throughout the years. So I don't want the relationship to end after this project. I want it to continue and I want it to keep going, and I want the kids to get a really good idea of why we're testing and doing it not just to test a water body, but to do it and actually benefit the town, and getting these numbers and data for you for your permit. The other things that I'm looking at to do at the high school is a little bit more aggressive recycling and composting program. We tried to start a composting program last year at the school. It's just habits haven't been formed, and we're still getting a lot of that trash thrown into, or compost thrown into the trash. And I've learned about the fact that there's a thought about a bioreactor and all of this food waste going to better use, which is pretty awesome, because if we can start changing minds about what you should do with your yard waste and your food compost, and not put it into the trash and put it into a better use as a bioreactor, or even your compost, that would be better for your trash fees. And also better for the environment, better for the landfill. There's less going into the landfill. You can use it for energy, and you can use it for your garden and make awesome soil for your garden and nutrients. And we do have a school garden that we are trying to make this compost for, but if no one's throwing their stuff in our compost bins, we can't really make compost. So it's been a battle that we've been trying to fight, but we're trying different things to try and get that word out there. So those are two other big things that we're going to try and work with the school.
Thank you. I just want to thank also John Laughlin and Dave Taylor, who have been helpful in kind of putting this together and planning it, and will be helpful when we're out in the field, starting to do some sampling. I've gone out and checked. John gave me some outfalls to go out and look for. A lot of them are confined space entry, so they're not good ones to sample. I have about maybe 15 more I have to visit to see if I can find some better ones. If I can't find those, I'm going to need to get some highway staff to help us pop some manholes when we go out to sample. But we're planning on sampling in wet weather in order to make sure that our students here can actually grab samples, because sometimes in dry weather there's nothing to grab. So, but I'm excited and it should be fun.
I am too. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I might add that we are single stream recycling. The Board of Health office is open till 8 tonight. I don't know if you've talked to them, but maybe they might have some programs that can help out as well.
Thank you all. That was an awesome presentation. Really
Thank you.
well done.
Oh, I just wanted to mention, I left it, for the people who saw it, they have a Twitter handle and a Facebook page. So follow them on Twitter, because I follow them on Twitter. So maybe we'll tweet some pictures of us sampling and get you some good coverage. That'd be good.
It's actually nice to see leadership of the Board of Selectmen getting involved with the students for some good of the town for a change, huh? It's good. Wish you well. Okay, next up we have item number 8, Open Space and Recreation Study Committee. Did they make it, Ellen?
Excuse me?
The open space report?
That will be postponed till May 15th.
Okay. May 15th, thank you. Okay, item number 9, we have committee appointments and resignations.
We have a number of items, Mr. Chairman, before Dave yells at me, I have to put my microphone on. First up, we have a resignation from Mr. Ryan from the Capital Planning Committee, so amongst the appointments the board will have to make with reorganization will be somebody to capital planning. I certainly want...
I want to thank the guys for putting up with me, you know, the liaison bit. I just have some physical things going on, and getting out and driving is more difficult for me. So at night it's even worse, because I just, you know, I may need issues done with my neck and stuff. So I have to just cut out a few more things of what I'm doing. And quite frankly, you guys are in great shape. I went down to the meeting. You know, you don't need a BOS guy down there getting in the way, quite frankly. Liaison's one thing, but you guys are doing a great job. And whoever joins, I hear this may be a new applicant. I just want to thank you for the time and the effort. You guys do a great job. And, you know, time marches on for me, unfortunately. And I got, you know, just got some deteriorating bones in my spine, so I have to just be a little more careful in what I do. And nighttime's getting tough because I can't whip my head around like I did when in the old days, you know? So.
Maybe we should move Abby to the daytime, Larry.
I'll be this guy. And I got to turn this way now. I can't just whip my head around.
No, thank you, Larry, for your service to the Capital Planning Committee. It's an important committee in town.
It is a
And,
important.
it actually lays the foundation for the future of town and projects and whatnot as funding becomes available by the ranking and that sort of thing. It actually helps give us a little bit of a roadmap of where we're heading with capital expenditures, so.
The board has an appointment, and it can be a member of the board, or it can be someone else. So the importance of this, Mr. Chairman, is that if a member of the board is interested, one, and/or for the public, if they're interested, to apply to the board for their consideration.
Okay, we'll take that up at our, actually, next meeting. We
May
can actually
1st.
look at that. So, May 1st. Thank you. We also have the resignation of Bryan Hughes from the ZBA, another hard-working committee in town. And I know Brian's actually on the capital planning committee as well. So, you doing a new dance for us? Or what? That wasn't very environmental.
It's going to rain.
Right in front of the environmental fund.
This is
Right
a
in front
catch
of
and
them.
release building. Eric. Yeah. Yeah.
Environmental people are coming after you.
We have a resident exterminator on staff as well, too.
There you go.
And again, there's openings for the ZBA. So I'd like to send a letter to Brian with regret. I mean, he served the zoning board. Well, it's a tough board because most of the people who come before zoning only go because they have to, not because they want to. So it's very difficult at times to make tough decisions. So I applaud that board for the time and effort that they all make doing that on behalf of the town. Okay, we also have an appointment tonight, a request for the Fire Station Building Committee. Susan Tasker.
There is a vacancy on the Fire Department Building Committee. Susan's been attending a lot of the meeting, and Fire Chief Duffy had asked her if she would She's familiar with the project if she would participate as a voting member of that committee. And has,
Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor? That's a unanimous vote. Welcome aboard, Sue. And next up, we have an announcement of an appointment of Robert Sullivan to the,
this does not require approval of the board, but I just wanted to inform the board as we forge ahead with our Community Preservation Act and the Community Preservation Committee, the Housing Authority does have one appointment. There was a vacancy caused by the resignation of John Rogers as the Housing Committee appointment, and the Housing Committee has, the Housing Authority has recommended Robert Sullivan, and they have voted him to their, and it's just an announcement, it's their appointment, but letting the board know.
welcome aboard, and thank you. Next up, moving right along to item number 10, we have Reimagine Rockland. Mr. Mullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will hopefully be quick. Last week, actually, like, as the board knows, working together, especially with Marcy, Birmingham, with the town administrator's office, and like and other folks and groups here at Town Hall and throughout the town, Reimagine Rockland has been working to implement like a number of the grant awards that the town has been working on and has and have also been receiving over the past few months. Last week, in one of the conversations about Reimagine Rockland and how we're moving forward and how we describe Reimagine Rockland and actually what it is, some questions came up about what exactly it was, how are people involved and so forth. And the short answer to that question is actually the grant that the town just received from the Mass Downtown Initiative, is actually what that question is all about figuring out. At the direction forward for Reimagine Rockland, how it's organized and so forth. But in the meantime, the questions raised, just for the folks involved in the effort, and especially based on the fact that we're working with our town grants and so forth. In the meantime, until we have a direction from the grant, it was advised that we move forward as a town committee that reports to the Board of Selectmen for the short term. And when I say a short term, it would probably likely only be for the next 4 or 5 months or so until Reimagine Rockland really has a direction forward, a path forward with exactly how to be organized. And just to clear up some ambiguities that exist in the meantime, and to make sure that when we describe it, we describe it accurately. We thought, and it was advised to us that this would be the best way forward for the immediate future. So
I'd like to make a motion to reestablish to establish Reimagine Rockland as an ad hoc advisory board to the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Thank you. I'd like to also say that I know that 3 members of our board have been working diligently on Reimagine Rockland. I attended one meeting, and I was quite impressed with all the work and effort that goes into it. I know, along with many other volunteers throughout the community, but I know that the 3 particular members, I know Michael Laughlin, myself, Mike Mullen, and Deidre Hall have been instrumental in helping that, along with Marcy from Town Hall. And it's actually something that's starting to take root in the town, and is actually, it was encouraging to go there and see cross-section of the community there for Reimagine Rockland. And part of that effort, I think you're going to see on a special town meeting, it had come up in that meeting that we discussed the possibility of purchasing 258 Union Street. And again, that's another component of the town actually buying into reinvesting, revitalization of downtown, which Reimagine Rockland's really was established for. But like everything else that grows, I mean, there's only so much the town can do. So I believe at some point, you're going to see that convert to a nonprofit type group in town. Although any of the grants that are, we'll say, offered through the state would be administered through the town of Rockland. And I think with the ad hoc committee, I'd like to, maybe entertain a motion that one of you three could go on that ad hoc committee, still continue the work. I know it's difficult with three being on there, but it'd be nice if at least one of you could, because with three, we always end up with the conflict because of open meeting law, and we have to post every meeting, and it makes it a lot more difficult.
So to that end, if I could, Mr. Chairman, because I've been thinking about that a lot as well. If we could just tonight establish our Reimagine Rockland as a town committee, and then at our next meeting and discuss the possible appointments or appointment from this board and and any other folks that might be deemed all the applicants, so to speak, if we could flesh that out at the next meeting. Without internally, that might give us a little bit of time to.
No, I think that's a great idea, but again.
How many people?
We're not sure at this end time. We can further discuss that at the next meeting.
How many currently are on who actually attend?
There's quite a bit. There's probably
The
upward.
steering, though. How many are on the steering committee?
On the steering, there's six, I believe.
How many separate committees do you have?
I have 24 on business.
24 in business. I mean, if we have too many, we won't get anything done because it's hard to agree on anything.
I'll get them all together.
But I think that we need to pick a number, whether that's 7 or whether that's 9, so we have a cross-section from the community. So if we could establish that part tonight, we could at least advertise for what we're looking for committee members. And one could, if we go 7 or 9, one could actually be appointed from our board. 'Cause like I said, it's hard to pick. I mean, you all do such a great job with it. I know that. Oh, really, it is.
I know, I'm not.
So,
I mean, I mean, the meeting I went to was well-attended, and the people were well-informed, and I know when I left the meeting, I felt good about it. I think that's what we're trying to do, trying to make everybody think good about Rockland again.
I could be wrong, but I thought potentially we could approach the people who are already on the steering committee and find out whether or not they would be interested in serving to start, because those are the people who are already serving.
I think we'd have to post it first anyway.
and so if we could advertise, if we want to advertise for steering committee members with the hope that we would invite current steering committee members to continue serving, maybe make it, maybe include the organization as our 7 people as a steering committee, and open that up to all who want to apply, and then we can go from there. So we if we set it at 7, I think that's a manageable number, and then we can ask the people who are currently involved, if they want to continue in that role. And
so would 7 allow you enough to still appoint one from the Board of Selectmen?
I think you go to 9.
Or would you be better off with 9?
I think you go to 9.
So we have more?
Yes.
We're trying to push interest, and I think we're up to over 50 people.
So the more people to get to a short list of 9 is so.
Yeah.
So that
So
would make sense.
9 makes sense. That way you get a couple from each area, a couple from marketing, a couple from.
So the board's looking to establish a permanent committee for the town called Reimagine Rockland.
Yes.
And you're going to have staggered terms, 3-year terms, I assume, for a steering committee of some sort. We'll come back with a proposal.
Sure.
Yes. The reality is, this whole organization practically speaking, would probably only exist for less than a year, I would say. But this is really to just make sure in the meantime we could answer any questions and be able to talk about exactly what the group is. So.
Why don't I, Mr. Mullen, you know, you have a number of ideas. I know Ms. Hall does. I've talked to Mr. O'Loughlin. Why don't we talk, see where we can go and get this drawn up properly?
Yep.
If it's going to be an ongoing committee, after we establish it the first year, it does require town meeting approval. To continue beyond that year, you can have an ad hoc. I'd suggest that you don't appoint the ad hoc until the May 15th meeting, which would be after town meeting.
Yep.
That allows us to, we didn't have time to get this on to town meeting anyways.
Yep.
And then by the next town meeting, we'll certainly know if we want to establish some sort of permanency or if they're going to go completely independent as a nonprofit group. But I'll put together proposals, talking with all of you, and we'll present to the board maybe by the next meeting with the intent of doing some appointments on establishing it on May 15th and appointing people, if that's okay with the board.
Do we have a motion for that?
Have we, can't we establish a committee without putting people on it at this point? Why do we need to do that at the same time?
Well, we're going to come back. You still want to know, I guess my proposal would be come back so that we know what it is. Is it 7? Is it 9? How many people? Are you looking for certain members of the community? Come back with a...
I'd like to, I think we already made the motion, voted on it,
Oh,
to
we can
establish
establish
it today.
the committee.
Right now, today. And then.
And today, and then come back and fill in the pieces.
Right.
In terms of the details and, you know, which we envision doing.
Yeah, and we took that vote.
I know you want to establish it, but we don't have any members yet.
That's
I'm
okay.
just trying to follow procedure of
That's okay.
the warrant, the charter.
So we're going to establish an ad hoc committee. Numbers to be, is it going to be 9 or is it going to be more?
We don't know that yet.
All right, so number to be determined.
Yeah, so if we can have this issue also on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
And we can further flesh that out, but I think the timeliness of just like establishing this as a committee would be wise right now.
Okay, so we can, so we'll have does anyone want to entertain a motion to establish the committee?
We did, and we voted on it, and it passed.
Okay, so we're good. And then the number will be determined. Mr. Chalker will...
We'll put together
Yeah, that's perfect.
a proposal.
We'll bring it to the next Board of
We're-
Selectmen's
we're
meeting, so
officially
it's on the agenda.
advertising?
We won't be able to do that to the next meeting.
So the next meeting, you can't advertise yet, right?
Well, people are watching if they want to get an application, and they can, but
Well, I just mean because sometimes, you know, people say we haven't advertised things when we usually do mostly, so.
I think the next meeting on May 1st, you will be formally advertising with appointments for May 15th.
Okay, good, works for me.
You good for the public
to go.
service announcement?
I love it.
Okay, so we appreciate that. Item number 11, open and close special town meeting warrant for additional items. Mr. Chalker, and then I'll let you turn it over to Mr. Hart.
You have a number of proposals in front of you, but we are allowed, if the need arises, to have the board vote to open the special town meeting so that we can add additional items. There are a couple of additional items which, in working with Mr. Hart and the Finance Committee and the Capital Planning Committee, we would like to add to the special town meeting warrant, which is probably one of the only reasons that the warrant is not printed today. We're waiting action from the Board of Selectmen, and we will have the final special town meeting and annual warrant printed by the end of the week. Mr. Hart.
I had a chance to sit with the Finance Committee last night. We went through the town meeting warrant as well as the operational budget. We made a lot of progress, and there's only very few articles that are still waiting for approval. So once again, when we go to town meeting, the warrant will show most of the recommendations right within it, which should make for some quick work of the articles. There didn't seem to be a lot of different arguments on anything, so everybody seemed to be working along together. We did have cooperation from quite a few departments on withdrawing articles in order to fit everything in financially, and I'd like to thank police, fire, highway, park, and the school who all participated in withdrawing their articles in order to fit the budget together. I've got two additional items that we're presenting before you. One is for the Veterans Memorial Stadium and Garage, which is, the bids came in and they were higher than we expected, partially because of the fact there was some additional items that they were requesting to put in, such as instead of just having an empty shell, they wanted to have utilities actually to come to the building, which you need no matter what in order to have drainage properly for there. And as well as the bids came in a little bit higher than we thought. So with that, the first article is for the increase in that, and I know it reads 485, but it also reads 500 in the list. I would like to have you approve that at the $500,000, and that'll allow me to work within the amounts that we have. The only thing that will not be done at that point in time is there was an alternate for dugout expansion, but the dugouts are actually sufficient for size right now. It was just kind of a pie in the sky add-on that they were doing. So if you would move forward in approval on, yes?
If they're willing. So we're going to explain, I guess, both articles. Before we can add them, we're going to have to open.
Correct.
So we're going to talk about the merits of each.
So you want me to go to the second one? The second one is for $150,000. And I don't believe this is actually in there. The Finance Committee recommended that we remove the $150,000 from the Highway Department's budget, and this was used for various smaller capital type projects that would not normally fall within the Capital Planning Committee's purview. And we've used them along with grant money to accomplish quite a bit of projects around the town. And with that, we have removed it from the Highway Department's budget, and we're looking to have a separate article for it here. It was always done very well with the cooperation between the town administrator and the Highway Department, signing off on it all within the legal purview of what we'd be able to do. And with that, these are the two articles that we're hoping that you'll consider opening the special town meeting and adding these back in this evening.
This is not, this second article for the 150 is not a new expenditure.
Why the change?
Finance Committee apparently last night asked to move this out of the Highway Department because almost all of the work is done by the Highway Department. So this is where we have kept that for those emergencies that arise. Some of them have been, we had to do an additional walkway after some of the seniors, for example, almost got hit up on Plain Street. And Peg Bryant came in and said, can we get a 25-foot walkway directly from the senior center over to the rail trail rather than have them loop out to the street? That was one of the projects. The signs that we decided to do after we decided to go to year-round parking ban on Union Street. We don't always have a full year's notification, some of the projects. Some of this money was used towards the end of last year when we knew we had the money to, we had the money left over at the end of the year to do this park area that everyone raves about next to Town Hall. We wait until we start to hit the end of the year and then we start to hit those projects unless it's kind of deemed to be that emergency. Most of the projects I have gone over either with the department head, with Eric certainly as the accountant, certainly with the chairman, to say we're going to spend $10,000 here just to accomplish this one thing. We don't have the foresight by October 1st to tell you what every problem next year is going to be. So the money's been in the Highway Department and subject to Dave being able to do the work, subject to the town administrator saying okay, the accountant saying okay, and typically through the chairman saying we had this one item and we're trying to take it. We use this funding to prep the additional parking area. When we built the senior center, we had no idea that the parking lot was always going to be overflowing, and we've had to do some of that. Dave, of course, doesn't want to take that money out of his paving account. So he says, I'll do the work if you can get the money. and the approval of recreation. So we were able to use some of these funds for tree removal and for site preparation in anticipation of paving that this spring. So it is we used it for the rail trail grant and a couple of items.
So Alan, this was under the highway, it's now under Board of Selectmen?
Well, we'll still probably put it under the highway, but
So who's responsible for spending this money?
we are,
Okay.
still. None of it gets spent
Nothing gets
without
Okay.
specifically my approval and/or Eric's, and typically Dave Taylor.
So it's
when we
just
do
a
the
matter of
work.
just taking it out of the budget and making an article similar to the way we've done it with other, capital expenditures?
You could call it, municipal property maintenance fund. For years, as you know, we had nothing. We had to wait for a year to fix the leaks when the roof leaked here because we had no money. We have finally, as you know, turned the corner and we have a little bit of money. I'm not saying by any means that this is, every one of these projects I think were extremely worthy projects, but it allows us to have funds to do a couple of these smaller projects that aren't always anticipated.
Would it be almost like a revolving account, though, or is it just a one-year?
No, they have to year.
This is just like you would do with
Like
any
the
other
police
article
cars,
for any of the other departments, and it is one-time money that you're using for it, and it has been traditionally, so it's not a regular operating type of item. I can see the merits in taking it and putting it in its own separate article. It's honestly gonna be 6 of one, half a dozen the other. It was just placed in the highway department because of the cooperation between the department and the Board of Selectmen's office, so.
It also allowed us to do projects without necessarily going out and, on the street and marketing it. Working with Dave, when are your guys available? When can we get this done at the least expense to the town? Dave, if your guys are available, we'll pay for the materials.
So this is an article that we can probably expect to see year over year, assuming the funds are available.
And assuming that we have the funding. I mean, this is certainly one of those areas where if we didn't have the ability to do it, we would have been right in there this year saying, all right, make it 100, make it 75, or wipe it out entirely. But because of the financial situation, we're finally at a point where we can do some of these things. I think, Ms. Hall, you stepped over the marble monument that's in the foyer here and has been for probably 7 years, and said, how long has that been here? Well, it's been about 7 years. We haven't had the wherewithal to do, for lack of a better term, what we've called Monument Park. We've got a few of these artifacts from the town of Rockland that we have not been able to properly place and/or display because we haven't had $5,000 to do the site work or to get the blocks in over the past few years. So this is one of those things where, all right, Dave, when your guys are available, yes, we can pay for the blocks, we can pay for the bricks, we can pay for the cement. And so, in working with the highway department, we get a few of these special items done a little cheaper.
Yeah.
And on the emergency, we didn't want the seniors getting run over on Plain Street. So I think we fixed the ramp at the community center with some of this money. So it's some of that emergency money as we need repairs here and there.
Any other questions from the board?
No, so do we have to make a motion to open special town meeting warrant?
Yes.
Second?
All those in favor? Unanimous vote, thank you. Now someone needs to make a motion to...
I'll make a motion to accept Article 19 and Article 20 to the special town meeting warrant.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. That's a unanimous vote, thank you. Now we need
Motion
to make a
close the
motion to
warrant.
close.
Second.
All those in favor? Again, unanimous vote, thank you. There you go.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Eric. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Next up, item number 12, Town Administrator's Report and Correspondence. Mr. Chalker.
There were a couple of things that aren't on this list, but we did receive correspondence that the opioid litigation that we signed on to, as have many other communities, has been filed. And I think there was an article that I forwarded to the board out of USA Today that has been filed, I believe, in
2019.
Ohio with an intended court opening. And I'm not an attorney, so I would have to defer to Ms. Hall, but they're looking at 2019 for the start of that. We have a request, and we may get a couple of others. Typically, the board has said as long as they notify the board and we notify the police department. But we have a request from Jackie at Players. She would like to be able to open early at 9 o'clock for serving hours for Mother's Day brunch and a Father's Day brunch just on those days. That's outside of her regular schedule.
Make a motion.
All those in favor? That's unanimous vote. Thank you.
We make that contingent to anybody else in town?
They have to send in a letter, and we notify the police department. Must be 24 hours prior to.
Yes. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice Chairman, former Vice Chairman.
Old guy.
Old guy.
OG.
Announcement, the annual Rockland Police Department drug take-back. I know that they have a collection container at the police station every day, but they're doing a special promotion. Anybody who has old prescription drugs, family members that have moved away, family members that have moved on, whatever, if they're no longer taking their particular prescriptions or the doctor told them and they need what to do, please don't flush them into the system. Please return those drugs to the police department on April 28th. They will be open and encouraging people to stop by between 10 and 2 for the annual drug take-back day at the Rockland Police Department. The rail trail and Union Street cleanup, that is in cooperation with Reimagine Rockland, the Park Department, the Open Space Department, Home Depot. Have I left anyone out, Mike?
No.
I think we have them all in there. And that is April 28th. They'll be meeting here. It's on their flyer. 8:30 check-in at Town Hall and at 12 p.m. Hopefully, everything will be cleaned up by then. It's cleaning up the sidewalks and the rail trail, mulching, and I believe there is a barbecue afterwards.
Oh, not a barbecue, but there'll be a cookout.
A cookout.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll rise to the barbecue standards, but there'll be hamburgers and hot dogs, I think, and good food and good cheer, and so that'll be exciting. That is new this year, so.
I believe, did you, I know you were soliciting the selectmen earlier, and I certainly want to participate in that as well.
Working on that as we speak.
To sponsor that. We have announcement that May 28th will be the Memorial Day Parade. Vinnie Fontaine, our veterans agent, will be appearing before the board on May 15th to go over all of the details. The parade route, I don't believe, has changed from last year, and they'll be going to the new monument in front of the schools and in front of the fields. Again, that'll be May 28th. BAT Bus Systems, which you know provide us with our bus service here, is holding a public meeting on their fare and their services as to whether or not they want to continue the current service or go to a dial-a-bat type of service here in Rockland. That public hearing will be on April 23rd in Brockton, April 26th in Rockland at the Senior Center, and that is at 10 o'clock. I can tell you, I know there were some people that were wondering about the BAT bus service when it came to Rockland, but we average about 32 people per day on that route, and for a lot of them it is their lifeline, whether it's to shopping, to jobs, or to medical appointments. It's been a great service, and again, at no expense to the town, we use what was our previous MBTA assessment off the cherry sheets to fund our portion of $52,000 or $54,000 as our half of the share of the grant that provides that service. So that is a free service to the town of Rockland, as a result of us being able to rededicate that money. And finally, I did not know Mr. Bonfiglio. I've heard nothing but good things about him. And certainly, I want to send my condolences to Brenda Kelly. Brenda and Ed were amongst the first people who really welcomed me with open arms when I got here. I had nowhere to go for lunch after my first, I think just about day here. We were meeting on Mondays then, and then I had a selectmen's meeting that night And so I was looking for a restaurant near Town Hall to walk to when I walked into the Banner, which at the time actually shocked a few people. They said, "You went to the Banner?" And Brenda sat down with me and brought out her husband and introduced Ed to me, and they were extremely friendly and warm and engaging, and it began a beautiful friendship that I certainly will miss Ed. So, thank you.
Thank you. Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. With that, Mr. O'Loughlin.
Chairman. I just want to echo Alan's sentiments. Brenda and Ed have been like family over the years to my family. I was at their wedding, they were at mine. It's just a tragic loss for the town. Ed was, he was one tough SOB, and but he had a heart of gold, and I think Rockland will really, really miss Ed, and hopefully Brenda does well. I know the town will take care of her. I also want to echo Alan's sentiments about Dominic Bonfiglio. His son Dave was probably my first friend all the way back to kindergarten. I think we rode on the bus together. He had 8 kids that came through Rockland school system. He coached basketball for over 30 years. He was 60 years of running his business, Bonfiglio Plastering, which was in town forever. And he was a 56-year member of Holy Family Church, which, you know, he was very active in the community, and somebody that, you know, two people like Ed and Dom to be gone within the same week, and then Bob a couple weeks ago. It's just, it's definitely the town's loss, and it will be felt for the immediate future anyway, years to come.
Thank you. Mr. Mullen?
Yeah, no, I just, Raul, want to follow up on what Mr. O'Loughlin mentioned. It's been a very tough weeks here for Rockland and many families in Rockland, and to the Bonfiglio family, to the Kelly and the Reed families. I just want to extend my thoughts, condolences, love and prayers way back in the day when I was a very young boy and I first ran for school committee. I ran unopposed for that election as well, and had my so-called victory party in the back room at the Banner. And you know, from that day on, and even before, Brenda and Ed have been really stalwarts in our community for Rockland, and just is really sad. It's been a few very sad weeks here, but we all can continue to come together, and I'm sure this week, the end of this week, will be extremely tough for their families and for our community, but I'm just very sorry. So that's all. And on another note, just thank you to everyone who came out to vote over the weekend. Had some very good races this year with good quality people. I wanted to be involved, especially when you look at the school committee race. There were 3 just really good quality people who were involved, who wanted to be involved for the right reasons. Each of the 3 of them really cared, and I think that the school committee and our town will be better for it. So, I mean, like in going forward, you know, the fact that we only had, I think, 3 contested races, though it made it, shall I say, a little easier for some people. You know, we do need a competition, and it, you know, that healthy dialogue to, you know, about where we're going as a community is, needed more than ever. So, and whether like it's Reimagine Rockland, whether it's running for the Board of Selectmen next year, of course, or anything else, or you know, the zoning board, as we talked about earlier, that board is critical to you know, how we attract businesses and work with businesses and residents and everything else. So, like, if you're at home and you're listening, there's probably 5 or 10 people who are please join us and get involved. And I like it's rewarding, and like it helps, like it means a lot to what we do here. So that's all I am, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan.
I got to reiterate the sadness that Rockland's been going through lately. Big names, little names, just lots of names. And it's just too bad for all the families involved. And, I want to say special thanks to Dom and his family. The kids grew up with my kids. They were all over the house all the time. Dom used to be a basketball referee back in the early days, and we'd kick him around when he was out on the floor,
He was brutal.
Do you know what traveling is? Yeah. He says, yeah, what you're going to be doing in about 2 seconds out the door. And he was a great guy, funny, and just saw him not too many weeks ago. We had a good conversation. Always a smile, always a happy guy, always a good thing to say. He'll be missed. Eddie will be definitely missed. Bob's going to be missed. I could go on and on. I just don't want to mention all the names because there's just way too many. But, I wrote a little thing on Facebook. I said, it looks like a page of Rockland history is changing. And some of the people that are the most famous, or whatever you want to call them, in our town of passing on in the towns, just changing. And that's what happens all the time. Change is not always a bad thing, but the unhappiness of having to go through these life changes is certainly something that the whole town is bearing, if you will. There isn't a person on this board, in this room, or anywhere in the town of Rockland who hasn't been touched by the death bug in the last few weeks. So to all of us and to all of them, we're with you as best we can. And we'll see you on the days when we say goodbye. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Hall?
Thank you. I just had a couple of things I wanted to mention. Last week, I was able to attend the Mass Municipal Association Subcommittee on Environment and Energy. Talked about a few things that may be of particular interest to the town and this board, so I wanted to take the time to share that. Presently, right now, there's a bill pending to repeal the bottle bill, and it looks like it's going to come out of Ways and Means favorably. So I'm not sure if the board wants to take a position on it. It is the strongest recycling bill that has ever been. So it has some potential impacts if the bottle bill is repealed. Not sure how the board feels about that, but figured I'd mention it. There are grant opportunities available for eco-friendly school buses, as well as medium and heavy-duty diesel vehicles as a result of the Volkswagen settlement. There was a $2.7 billion settlement with Volkswagen, and $75 million was going to Massachusetts. So we can start looking at our fleet maybe and seeing where we might be eligible for those. DEP is coming out with an RFI in the next month, and those can be up to 100% grant opportunities. So it's just something to look at. Additionally, when I attended the sewer commission meeting, I was advised that the sewer department has received a $60,000 grant from the Executive Office of Energy and the Environment to study the viability of a gas digester to generate heat. And it does that by breaking down biodegradable material in the absence of oxygen. And it can be used from the sludge from the treatment plant, as well as food scraps, which is kind of what Ms. Armstrong was talking about earlier today with composting. So the grant only requires $3,500, I think, matching from the town. And they're going to study whether or not that's something that we can do. We spend right now $250,000 a year in electricity to run that plant. So whatever we can recapture through this process would be savings to the town and savings to the sewer payer. So I think that's a great opportunity. I want to mention the cleanup on the 28th. I usually come out with my kids. I'm going to try to make it again. It's always a fun event. And I want to take the time to thank the board for supporting me by appointing me vice chair this year around. The past year has been exciting for me, and it's been the board's very dynamic, lots of moving parts, and we have lots of diverse interests and active members. I'm looking forward to where we head next year, where we go, what our priorities are, and working with everyone to really move the town forward. So I really want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
How soon is that bottle bill coming up?
Soon. It should be coming out soon. I can follow up again.
I was in
original sponsor, I don't know. Do you think it's timely for the board to take a position if they want to take a position pro or con?
I mean,
You should see it.
why don't you let me talk about, because there's a great presentation to the subcommittee on the impacts. What they're looking to do is create a recycling grant, like a single stream grant opportunity by adding a 1 cent tax on every beverage. The problem is the grants are only going to be available for 3 years, and they're going to be competitive, so not every community is going to get them. And they haven't determined what the parameters are for getting a grant. So you would never know if you were even a competitive community yet because they haven't established those. But ultimately, the thought is when you looked at the data, and I'll show it to you, that you looked at states that don't have bottle bills and the amount of recycling, even when they have single stream, they still end up with much lower recycling rates with single stream when there's no bottle bill. And then you also compared communities like Massachusetts, where we actually have what's called a half bottle bill because we only use certain products, versus Maine, which has more, and Maine has, you know, multiple times the amount of recycling of bottles than we do. So the data is really good. I could give it to you, Alan, and we could talk about it, I guess. But it was good. So we can talk about it. Think on it a little bit.
It might actually tie in with the NIPS, because we had considered whether we would go through and either ban NIPS or maybe add those or to a bottle bill. I mean, if it's any indication of what's out there for NIPS, if the bottle bill is repealed, you know, I hate to see a lot of trash and things back out on the streets again, because then we, as a town, would be obligated to clean that stuff up, which is an expense to the town.
Yeah.
So maybe we should take a position on it at some point in the very near future. So my comments are, again, my condolences to both the Reed family and the Bonfiglio family. I want to thank everyone who did come out for the elections. I mean, that's where government starts. It starts locally. And I know there weren't a lot of hot ticket items on the ballot this year, other than some minor contested, I shouldn't say minor, but 3 contested races. And, you know, for everyone who went out and supported their candidates, you know, I applaud you. But just over 1,400 people out of, you know, what we have in the community, 11,000 plus, you know, voters. I mean, we really need to do better with that. So in the future, if people can come out and vote and their voice is heard, that's how local government's done. It starts with the people who actually vote. I'd like to thank our former vice chair, Mr. Mullen, for his last year of service. And I'd like to welcome our new vice chair, Deidre, to that position. I think she does a lot of work on behalf of the board, as well as many other members here. I mean, this is the most active board, and I'm in my 9th year, and this is the most active board that I've been part of in the last 9 years. So, I mean, it's great to see that. I mean, we have a lot of younger members. Larry is the, we'll say, what, the grandfather of the board?
Much to my dismay. But I'll just reiterate that I've been around since '96 in the board, and this guy here to my right does the job and does it well, which makes it much easier for the rest of us to do ours. And I'm so happy that we have 3 people that are involved. You know, in the old days we were involved, but it wasn't to the degree that we're doing it now. You know, these people are in here with the, they're going to change the town if you want to. We're going to bring the, you know, we're going to keep that page flipping forward, and eventually the page will turn, and the Rockland will be, you know, people is different than 30 years ago. I came here in 1972. You know, I hear people, oh, Jesus, in those days, you know. I said, you know, those days are gone. We're in the present. We need to set things right. We got people who are interested in doing that. And we may not always agree, but you know what? We're sticking our noses out, and we're saying, this is what we'd like to help you do, and please join us and do it. So, sorry, Dad.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that.
Well, it's only because it's true.
I mean, it takes all the boards in town, it takes all the volunteers. It's a joint effort.
Yep.
The employees throughout town. We've been very fortunate, at least in my tenure, that the town really could do nothing but improve. And it's nice to actually look around and look back and see that, you know, going back 9 years, I was going through some notes of some things that when I originally ran for the Board of Selectmen, but what I'd like to see happen in town. And, I'm proud to say that, as a board, as a community, we've been able to accomplish a vast majority of those. And I know that new members have new ideas, and they have new desires, and they want to go through, and they have new things they'd like to see the community do. And that's what makes it great, because, you take Reimagine Rockland. We have a 5-member board, yet we have 3 members of the board who are always going to Reimagine Rockland doing something, which creates a problem as far as open meeting, but those are actually good problems to have when you think about it. Because, in the old day, you'd be lucky to drag, someone out, because it's hard to get there. And, as busy as people are with, working, raising a family, and getting out there, it's really a testament of how far the community's come. I know, in the old day, we would get up at town meeting, and people would be embarrassed to get up. If you're out somewhere, they'd be embarrassed to say they're from Rockland, because the old day, we'd get up and we fought one another on town meeting floor. And we've really turned the corner by having, good leadership in not only this board, but the finance committee, capital improvement, school committee, all those other committees learn to work well together. And that makes the community that much stronger for the residents. And we encourage the residents to come out. Tonight, we've seen the environmental group here. We haven't had that in the past, where we've had interaction between our board and school students and whatnot. So it's nice to see that, and it's nice to see young people getting engaged in the community and want to be part of the community, because that's where it starts. You really start young, where you get somebody interested to do things. We've all started with we donate time to, youth programs that our children are involved in and stuff. And then we take it, you join a committee, you have friends with the committee, you make friends with people. And, you still have those friends from this day, but you're also doing good for the community. So, not only do you get to enjoy the friendship of the people you work with, but you also, you can actually move things forward and make the town better. And the only way you can do that is by bringing ideas to the table, whether we agree or disagree. I know that there's been discussion out there in the past that, some people think the board should disagree on things. And my sentiment is, if we can all agree that we're all here for the right reasons. We want to make sure the town gets better. We all want to leave it in a better spot. So I don't see why there's any disagreement on that. And if we go through, we all may have difference of opinions, but we can certainly work with one another to either change those opinions or at least have a positive vote and the best outcome for the town, regardless of our own personal opinion. So sometimes, I may not agree with something, but I'll vote for it because I know it's the best thing for the town. And I said this when I ran before, only compromise when it's in the best interest of the town. So if this board sometimes compromises position for the best interest of the town, well, then I say, well done, because that's what a board's supposed to do. They're supposed to make sure it's for the best interest of the town. And again, like I said, I'm in my 9th year. I've been fortunate enough to be chair for, I think this will be my 8th year as chair, which I appreciate that. And this is the most active board I've seen in that time, and I think it's a good thing. Because each one of us bring different ideas and different points where we are in our life and different perspectives. And that's how we can actually help shape and mold what we want to see the community going in. I know we still need sidewalks. I know we still need a fire station. I know we still need to do something with the community center. I know at some point we're going to need to do something with town hall in the future. There's lots of things that are out there, but it all starts here by laying the plan and then having the people of the community work with us and one another to make sure that that can happen. Who'd have thunk that years ago that, Rockland would go through and, because no one talks about the good things we do, that we would get a senior center, that we would have a roads project, you got a solar field. We've gone through, we've done things to street lighting that'll be starting soon. All those things that, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, that'll never happen in Rockland. And Rockland has actually become the leader on the South Shore because we've taken steps to improve our town with all these boards and stuff. So it's a good thing. It really is. I know I've said it for a long time that we want to be the leader of the South Shore, and I think we've established that. I mean, when I read in the newspaper that, you know, Rockland's had free kindergarten, I mean, this board supported that. I know the school committee wanted that, but this board supported that. And without the support of this board, you know, people don't realize that this board is really the key to a lot of things that happen in town. Because if the Board of Selectmen chooses not to support something, you know, then it doesn't happen. And I think that's a good thing, that this board has been very active and supportive of many things that have come before the town. And when you read that Marshfield, you know, a community that's, you know, we'll say, their average income's a lot higher than Rockland's income. You know, they want to follow us and they want to have all-day kindergarten, things like that. Those are nice things to read in the paper. So when you're out and about, if you're, I don't know, if you're out on your job or you're out somewhere and you're talking to other people from different communities, it's nice to know that Rockland's represented well. I mean, we all have our troubles. Obviously, we still have to do better with the opioid addiction. Unfortunately, sometimes we have incidents that none of us can control, but it's how we handle those incidents and move forward that separate us from those other communities. And I think this board and other boards in town have done a great job doing that. And regardless of our differences, I think we all need to pull together and find common ground and find a way to continue moving Rockland forward. So I truly appreciate the vote and faith in me, and I look forward to serving this board at least for the next year. I also wanted to mention that somebody had just whispered in my ear that Barbara Bush, former First Lady, had passed away, so I wanted to wish the Bush family, you know, condolences. And again, as Larry had said earlier, there's a lot of people in town who have done a lot of good, and their time has come, but now it's an opportunity for the people we don't know to step up and make their mark. And how they do that is by joining boards and getting out and being more active, so that, you know, at some point, I mean, at some point, hopefully they'll be saying the same about us. I don't know, they might not say that about me, but at some point, you know, if you join a board, you know, you want to see that guy or that woman or that person, you know. Yeah. So with that, we have a executive session tonight for contract negotiations and litigation.
Make a motion to adjourn to executive session and not to reconvene here.
All those in favor, and it's a voice vote?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you. And thank you, Dave, and good night.